Hello and welcome to this very first edition of DEJI360. I am DEJI360. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, the 2015 general elections in Nigeria may be a clear 2 years away. The drumbeat is already beginning to sound very loud. In fact, some would say deafening. And the message coming out clearly from the drumbeat is the race for the presidency. In all of the noise we have heard so far, one thing is becoming clear, and it is very obvious that the 2015 presidency will be a fight between two sections of the country, the north as a whole and the south-south region of the country. And there's no doubt at all that this is actually the situation. If you're in doubt, then take a listen to this.
We would want to see in 2015 a northern president. And therefore, we are surprised that some of our members who have taken part in the decisions we have taken, they go and then go to him. And we now know that they have been tricked by Edwin Clark, and they have now apologized to us. The whole of election could be done in one day, so that they don't have to take a lot of time. Because even Kenya, they have 7 elections on the same day, all the same 7, and they do it one day. Why divide it into? If you want a free and fair election, you should do it all on the same day.
He can contest 3 times. He can contest, but we'll beat him. Simple. Is it a governor who makes a president? It's not a governor. It's people like me, like the ordinary people who vote. It's not the governor. The ordinary northerner is convinced that the presidency must come to the north, no matter how. No matter the governor or no governor. I told you, even the housewife in the north now is convinced that.
The Constitution says that you must contest 2 elections and rule for 8 years. It's only then you are disqualified from contesting.
For the sake of peace to reign in the country.
Who owns the country more than the other person? Nigeria belongs to all of us. And there is nobody who is superior to the other. So if you are talking about peace, peace for whom? So if a northerner does not rule in this country, there will be no peace in this country. They have ruled for over 38 years. We have only ruled in the south for about 14 and a half years.
So, sir, are you...
And when Lugard united this country, he didn't say that the north was superior to the south. We are all equal in this country. And anybody can aspire to the highest position in this country. So nobody has the prerogative of ruling others. There is already an incumbent who has not done the second term. So a northerner has no place. It's not yet the turn of a northerner.
But they have the right to contest as Nigerians too. So
not that in other parties, yes. In other parties, in 1999, in 79, Chagari contested with other people. But in 1983, he alone contested the primary, even though there were men of timber and caliber in NPN who could have contested at that time. We don't believe in double standards.
Well, joining me now to discuss this very contentious issue in the country are 2 gentlemen. Habib Haruna is the Deputy Editor, Politics of Daily Independent newspaper. Habib, thank you very much for coming. And I also have Chief Godwin Wazirike, who is the President of Aka Ikenga. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. Let me just start with you, Chief Wazirike. We heard Chief Edwin Clark saying there that it will be in the interest of President Goodluck Jonathan. It will be in the interest of the unity of Nigeria for President Goodluck Jonathan to run. And what is clearly, and before him, we had Lawal Keita and, of course, the chairman of the Arewa Consultative Forum coming out to say the presidency must shift to the north. So clearly we're having, it's like the race has been narrowed down to the north as a whole and the south-south.
Well, I really don't know the angles they're coming from. What I understand from those I've spoken before is that the same way Shagari went for re-election,
Exactly.
it's also the same way Obasanjo went for re-election.
And that's the argument of Chief Edwin Clark.
And today, we have Jonathan going for re-election. Is that a crime?
That is actually not a crime, but even though President Goodluck Jonathan has not declared his intention
he has
to
not
run
declared, and yet somebody is taking up a position. He must not go. He must not go. Who are you to say he must not go? He's in the same position as those former presidents. So if he decides to run, let him run. It's for us Nigerians to say, yes, go. But you cannot stay in your house and decide for us who will run and who will not run.
Let me ask you, Habib, nobody is talking about possibly a candidate coming from the southeast, where Chief Godi Wazirike comes from, and we've had some people from the southeast who have come out to make a very strong case that, look, it's also the turn of the southeast to produce the president. But what we keep hearing is the south, where President Goodluck Jonathan comes from, and the north.
I will not join this chorus or even like debate about the presidency contention between the south and the north. I think it's the usual elite game. You know, what we are watching is the elite again going to tell us that these are the rules before 2015. You see, the president, for God's sake, has a constitutional right to recontest if he wants to. He has not declared his intention, but from all indication, it's very clear that the man will contest. You know, but I will hesitate to join the debate or the conversation, because the issue here is that, is he capable? Has he done enough to warrant second time in office? That is the issue. That is the issue that should be on the table.
So that's what people should actually be discussing, and not whether where.
That should be the narrative. Not telling me that it's from the north. No, that's not the issue here. Nigerians are concerned that this man has spent 2 years here now. Has he measured up? Has he fulfilled his promises? Has he been up to task? Has he demonstrated enough leadership to show that yes, he deserves second time? These are the issues we will be tackling. DEJI, I don't think I will join that conversation. That is between north and south, because these people are the same.
Well, as much as you may not be willing to join the conversation, the fact is this is a reality, and it's something that we've got to deal with, that the people of the north are agitating that the presidency should come to the north, that has been away from the north for too long. And the argument, of course, is that if should President Goodluck Jonathan be allowed to contest, or should he contest in 2015, that he would be running for a third time.
But you see, DEJI, if they continue to insist that they don't have the right to contest, and it is a turn to produce the next president, I think they will be doing the service to the nation, and that may be counterproductive. Because what will happen, you know, in the process is that they'll be finding the embers of ethnicity and tribalism. And people will now say, okay, that is what happened in 2011. That's okay. Well, this man is our man. Let him go ahead. So it will not pay them. It will not pay the north. It will not be in their favor. You know, to continue to insist that this man cannot contest. When we follow the history of this country, Shagari was there, contested. But as Chief said, Obasanjo was there, he contested. He was there for 8 years. I think it should be what should be the measurement. What should be the parameter of a president, a sitting president of governor recontesting is the performance. The North making a point. I said that yes, this was our turn. This man finished the term. He has served another term. He should come to our region. But that should be based on the constitution, constitutionalism, and democratic process. In other words, people should decide. The party should decide. They should not just sit down somewhere and say they must produce. That's what I'm saying, DEJI. But if you are saying that, because it can't be the same game. You know, you cannot use that as the example of Obasanjo here, because Obasanjo from the southwest, it's had 2 years, two times, 8 years. This man is from south. He finished the term of their son, and is doing another one now. So they have that, in my opinion.
Yeah, they have a point.
They have a point.
They have a point. They have a reason to be agreed.
They pass through that process of democracy. And in other words, by picking that, you see, what I think is what they should do is to go to the field.
Yeah, but exactly.
Go to the field.
That's the point.
You know, don't digest the party. Don't do things that are
But let's get this straight. They've also said
2003, remember,
Yeah.
Buhari came from the north to challenge Obasanjo from southwest.
Absolutely.
well, they have
They
also
didn't make this argument.
no, and that's quite good because they have also said that look, no problem if the president wants to contest, no problem, let him contest, but that election should be conducted in one day. I mean, they have made that point. I just want to get your take on that because they are
I
suggesting.
have always believed in election in one day. This kind of staggered election, you keep everybody in a horrible mood for 1 month. I don't trust it and I don't like it. But let me tell you this. Some of these people, you may have 6 or 7 people who have no electoral value. They give themselves a name and suddenly they start pontificating. That is dangerous.
Absolutely.
Very, very dangerous.
Absolutely.
We have those who make laws for this country. We also have those who listen, like us, and those who talk. But at the moment, those people who claim to speak for the North, and I know for a fact that they're not speaking for the North.
Led for Nigerians, particularly the media, to control the narrative.
And because you talked about the media, I have to ask you this.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been covering politics now for quite a number of years. You've covered several conventions of not just the PDP, other political parties. You look at what is going on today, especially in the PDP, and you look at this argument, because you look at the key actors of this argument over where the next president should come from. They are all PDP. They are all PDP members. Now, look at the situation, and then I want you to just cast your mind into the future and tell us, is this not a recipe for a crisis when it comes to actually selecting who the presidential candidate of PDP will be when they hold their convention?
I don't think the PDP will collapse. I don't think so. You see, because they're in power. And if you look at the nature of Nigerian politics, the party in power has a way of attracting many elements. Even when they disagree, they find a way to agree. But what may likely happen is that if you look at this of Nigeria, the progressives always have a way of triumph, of coming out as the winning party.
And I wonder who the progressives are.
I'm telling you, if in my definition, if eventually it's not the APC, in my opinion, that will be the progressive party.
We will talk about the APC, but Chief, when we started this whole discussion, I said it's like the presidential race is narrowed down to the north and the south. Surprisingly, you're from the southeast. We're not hearing anything at all from the southeast. The southeast is not even making a case for itself. Or is it? Do you think it's not the time for the southeast to produce the president of this country? That's a region that has never produced. Okay, maybe with the exception of Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was anyway not even elected but appointed. The Southeast has never produced a president for this country. And there are quite a number of people in the Southeast who insist and think if there was any better time to produce a president from the Southeast, that the time is now.
Hold on. Nnamdi Azikiwe became president, ceremonial president of Nigeria
not elected.
in 1963 by the Constitution. If you look at the Constitution,
anyway, that is just by the way. That is not the argument.
For purposes of history,
okay.
For purposes of history,
Right.
that Constitution declared Nnamdi Azikiwe the president. Yeah. Now you are talking of Southeast, and why are we silent? You're very correct.
Jonathan is your brother,
Jonathan, we regard him as our cousin. When he came out,
why? Because his name is Abili Azikiwe.
No, because he's an Ijaw man from South. That's actually our reasoning. We supported him. We gave him the highest percentage of votes in this country.
And you intend to do
Many
that
of us are not happy that he has not really given us the kind of infrastructure we are looking for. For instance, the Igbo man is not interested in the appointment of this. He's interested in the road, the bridges, the network. Let him pass. By nature, he can take care of himself.
So I'm asking
now,
you
why are we
you think
silent?
2015?
We said after Jonathan that we'll now make our pitch. That's our turn. In other words, if Jonathan says he's not going for 2015...
people in the Southeast would not agree with you because
hold on.
the time.
If Jonathan is not going for 2015, we say fine. We said after Jonathan. If he's going for 2015, we say fine. We'll not bring you out and abandon you on the road. That's bad politics. And those of them who are saying it's not the time, nobody's stopping them. There are over 30 political parties right now. So it's not only PDP. If you think you have a good reason to come out, go ahead. You can even form your own party. But for the average Igbo man, whether in the Southeast or in the South, we said, let Jonathan go. If he's coming back, we'll support him.
whether or not he performs well eventually.
Hold on, no. It is our job to make sure he performs. We were with him in January, we visited him in January, and one of the things we asked him was, what are the problems, what are these? For instance, we don't even know that Federal Ministry of Agriculture has no project in the Southeast for this current budget.
And we're yet to see the
not
second
even
Niger
one,
bridge come
not
off anyway.
even one.
Anyway.
And we pointed it out and he was shocked. We know he will not say it. Why? We know he means well.
Wow.
We know his style is slow.
If you're waiting,
but we will still support him.
Anyway, if you're waiting until after 2015, then you have to get yourself prepared very well.
For a major fight.
You will be involved in a major fight. That is assuming, and that's taken for granted, that President Goodluck Jonathan is nominated by his party and he wins 2015, 2019.
Battle Royale, we are ready.
The North will come out all gone.
That's why the North is fighting now. We'll fight them.
All right. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program. Thank you very much, Chief Godwin Wazirike, who is the president of Aka Ikenga, for coming on the program, and Habib Haruna, the deputy editor, politics, Daily Independent newspaper. Thank you very much for coming on the program, and thank you for your wonderful contributions.
Thank you very much.
On the very first edition of DEJI360. All right, we'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the APC. That is the new party that some say is about to be registered by INEC. Will the center hold for the party? Will the party now be able to take on the PDP in 2015 and possibly throw the PDP out of power? We'll wait and see. Join us after the break. Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, you're watching DEJI360. I am DG Badimasi. Now, the APC, the All Progressives Congress, if everything goes well, will become a political party probably before the end of July. That's what we've been told by those who are pushing the idea of the APC. Now, what does the party plan to do? The party says once it is registered, it is going to hit the ground running, and that it is more than determined to take out the PDP in 2015. Now, why does the party think it has the power to take out the PDP in 2015? Because the APC is going to be a merger of at least 4 political parties. You have the ACN in there. You also have the ANPP, as well as the Congress for Progressive Change, that's CPC. You also have a faction of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, as well as a faction of the Democratic People's Party, that is DPP. Now, the calculation is that with the coming together of this party, they would be able to take on the PDP across the country. So the APC, according to them, will no longer be a regional party, as been claimed by some in some quarters now, that the ACN actually is a regional party, that when these parties now come together, they all come together to form a very big group, and that you actually need a very big political party to be able to take on the PDP. So we're trying in this segment of the program to look at the chances of the APC in the coming election. And joining us on the program, we still have Chief Godwin Wazirike, who's still with us here. And joining us now on the program is Chike Chudi, who is a political affairs analyst. Chike Chudi, let me say welcome. I shouldn't say welcome to Chief Godwin Wazirike because he's been here with us. And let me start with you because you're the new person here. Do you think that eventually, even though we've been told that, you know, that by the end of July, that's by those promoting the idea now, that by the end of July we may have the APC. Do you foresee anything going wrong? Do you think INEC may eventually decide not to register this political party? Because we've seen that the entire process has been a rocky one for the APC so far in terms of getting registered.
Well, like you said, the process has been very, very controversial, really. And I think it is controversial because of the sheer force of the personalities that have come together to form the APC. And again, there is this conspiracy theory, at least with regards to what people see as the vested interest of the People's Democratic Party. Which is going to be, you know, be opposed by the formation of the APC. All this while, we've not had any serious issues with registration of political parties, because they were never really seen as any kind of formidable challenge for the ruling PDP.
PDP.
So I think that controversy has to do, like I said, with the sheer force of character of certain individuals who make up the APC, essentially the leader of the Southwest PDP, ACN, Action Congress of Nigeria, and then again the leadership, especially of the CPC.
One thing we mustn't forget is that, let us look and ask ourselves this: why exactly have these guys decided to come together? The whole idea is that they've decided to come together because they believe that by coming together they'll be able to muster some kind of muscle and take on the PDP across the country. Not west, not east, not central, southeast, southwest. So let us now break this down for our audience to understand. Let us start from the northwest, for instance. And I'll start with you, Chief. Let us break this down and look at the chances of this party now, the APC. You look at the relative strength of the PDP in these areas, compare with what the APC is bringing to the table. Northwest, for instance, there's no question at all that in the last presidential election, Buhari did very well. He actually won the Northwest, so to speak. So the argument here and the logic here might be Northwest coming together with the other political parties. We can call the Northwest for the APC in 2015. Is that right?
Correct. But PDP will still get this 25%. And that's crucial. Now, look at Northeast.
So we call the Northwest for the APC?
For APC. With PDP getting 25%.
Very crucial.
Now, you look at Northeast.
Northeast, yeah.
They will share. The makeup in Northeast is not like the same makeup you have in the Northwest. They have too many tiny tribes. Too many. And when you see them, it depends on the strength of the political leader. Every strong political leader must deliver his own area.
Okay. So
it's shared.
Northeast, I'm still going to come to you to just get your own calculation on this now. Northeast
is shared.
Shared?
Yes.
So we go to North Central.
North Central, PDP will carry North Central, but APC will get 25%.
So PDP will get North Central?
Yes.
APC will definitely get it 25%. Fine, good. South-South, we can effectively say South-South will go to the PDP, right?
PDP.
No question. Southeast?
PDP.
PDP. Southwest?
Southwest, APC will win, but
that
PDP,
is if nobody sells out at the end of
PDP
the day.
will get...
I'm going to get your own views.
I would rather qualify Southwest to be 50%, 40-something%.
So,
in favor of
APC. So
60-40? No, I think 40-something%.
50-40-something.
Yes.
So obviously the APC having the slight advantage there.
Yes, that's the way I will see. Because if you notice, Ondo will not go along.
Okay. And that is assuming that the people of but hold on now. That you're assuming that because Ondo is controlled by the Labour Party, the people of Ondo State will definitely go where their governor goes, even if they disagree
we look
with
at the
government.
political situation today. And based on today, we can project tomorrow.
Okay.
That's why I said Oyo is not even a settled one-party state.
That is quite true.
You have PDP, you have Accord.
Now, if everything turned out the way you've just highlighted it here, then the race for 2015 will be too close to
Ogun State. Ogun State will not flow one side.
In spite of that,
they are missing.
Yeah.
Lagos may not even go APC.
Yeah, maybe that
it has a very strong percentage of non-indigenous.
And the more reason why you give the Southwest to the APC slightly by saying 50-40
Slightly, so it may end up be 50-50. It may end up.
All right, just hold on now. Let me come to you. No, just hold on. Let me come to you. I want us to be very, very meticulous about this, and let us take them one step at a time. Not west.
You know, is it Deji? I wanted to say something. You see, I get very worried, and I get extremely very worried when we see this as a basis for apportioning, maybe percentages that a particular.
But unfortunately, that's the way the parties are thinking. That's what they're thinking.
I agree with you. That is the way they are looking at it. Because if we are looking at, the demands of democracy, you know, the consequences of democracy and so on. You realize that, you know, elections and votes are going to be based on the performance and achievements of political parties.
Quite right.
And if that is the basis, then the PDP would find it very difficult to win in even the north, you know, parts of the north you have talked about and part of the south that you talk about. So that means that essentially what is going to happen is not going to be based on, you know, the performance of, you know, particular, you know, candidates, but on the basis essentially of sentiments again that were applied in 2011.
And that is quite true.
And that is the reason, the same reason why, for instance, you have local government elections. And clearly local governments, you know, that have done very, very badly, you know, and that are seen not to have performed, at the end of the day, end up, you know, the political parties that control this local government end up winning in their states, sometimes 95%,
100%.
or 100%, and so on.
It's just a reality in our part of the world. And the politicians, unfortunately, understand this. They are taking advantage of it. I'll give you an example. Go to the South, for instance. Whether or not President Jonathan has performed well is not the issue for the people of the South. For them, he is our son. He deserves to be there. So whether or not he's performed, that is not the basis for assessing. For them, that's not the basis through which they'll be voting in 2015. So that is what I'm saying. And you go to the North, for instance, the Northwest, for instance. Some people would, if the APC decides at the end of the day to field, say, a former President Buhari, for instance, if the APC decides that, there are quite a number of people in the Northwest who would not be looking at the credentials of Buhari. They would not, for instance, be questioning whether this man has the capacity to govern a 21st century Nigeria. For them, that is not the issue. For them, he's our son, he's our own, we have to vote for him.
Most unfortunately, that is the truth. And, you know, on that basis, I would go with some of the, you know, permutations that, you know, Chukwuwazurike has also talked about. And I think, to a very large extent, I will go along with that. But again, do not also forget...
And then it clearly shows that it's
yeah,
very dicey for the PDP. Very, very dicey. It's too close.
You know, it's not business as usual.
It is dicey because, you see, again, there's something we must look at. When the APC, you know, came out, and when they started making all of this noise and so on, the typical reaction from the PDP, I mean, we could tell. Now, they dismissed him with a wave of the hand. But then, and a lot of them predicted, I'm talking about the PDP bigwigs, predicted that the APC was going to implode and that it wasn't going to be a success. But if you look at it, the dynamics from the moment that APC came in, the party that seems, you know, that seems to have the potential for explosion or implosion is the PDP. Because the crisis that we had, for instance, the governors, you know, the meeting of the Nigerian Governors Forum, you know, those who did not toe the line, those who did not follow the instruction of the party, of their own party, were the PDP governors. If you look at the voting pattern of the APC governors, well, or yet, and again, most significantly, the APC has not been formed yet as a political party. It has not been recognized. But true. You see the level of cooperation, you see the level of cohesion and unity, even among, you know, people that have not yet been welded as a unit, as a force. And so that tells you that it would appear that in terms of direction, in terms of trajectory, that the opposition, at least, you know, being symbolized right now by the APC, seems to be working much more harmoniously than the PDP. And so the crisis, really, of governance at the level of the People's Democratic Party is still very huge for them to overcome. And as long as they have this crisis and these conflict situations within the PDP, the possibility of weakening their very structure, you know, and the ability to go into 2015 as one united party is compromised.
There's something I also want to bring your attention to. Because I'm looking at this calculation now from the point of view of these politicians who are coming together. Let's just assume that the whole of the, you know, North, for instance, Northwest and Northeast would go to APC, and North Central close to call, and then Southeast and South will go to PDP. Now, for the ACN that is joining this group now, it's been the argument, for instance, the ACN has always argued that, look, Buhari, for instance, in 2011 polled about 12 million votes, right? That if only Buhari had been able to win in the Southwest, that could have changed the equation for him and probably push him forward. Now, so the calculation of the ACN now is that it will be able to swing the vote of the Southwest now in favor of the APC. But I want us to look at it very closely. can it work, for instance? Because the ACN, for instance, is assuming that what happened in 2011, one of the reasons President Jonathan won landslide in Lagos is just because Tinubu decided, the ACN leadership, for instance, decided not to do anything, and that the ACN leadership just probably sold out to the PDP. But the question I'm asking now, was that the case, or was it the case that you have a sophisticated voter in Lagos, that the voters in Lagos were sophisticated, and that yes, when it came to governorship election, they voted for the ACN, but that when it came to the presidential election, they actually knew who they wanted to vote for. They were just not going to vote along party lines.
I think the average Lagos voter, like you said, is sophisticated.
And so the ACN might be taking this voter
yes,
for granted and
you
thinking it could
you can't
sway
take
it.
Lagos for granted, because the question is what percentage of residents in Lagos, or voters in Lagos, will follow the directive of, say, Tinubu, vote for this person. And I don't see Lagosians doing that. They'll still vote the way they want to vote. When the time comes, you'll be surprised that PDP will now show its strength. The only reason why PDP has not been doing very well in the Lagos state governorship level is that they have not been able to get their act together. But when it comes to presidential, it becomes
And probably because the ACN, I should add to the
excuse me, I'm coming.
Yeah,
then you see another calculation. As K.O. Mbadwe would say, when the comes to become, then you see the timber and caliber getting down to that level. Now, look at 2011. Do you remember ACN candidate?
Nuhuru Badu.
Won Osun State.
Yeah, he did.
How come in Lagos he didn't win? He won in Osun State. You see, when you get down to further details, you see some other things. The average voter in the Southwest is sophisticated. That's why in Oyo, you keep seeing musical chair. In Ogun State, remember it was the implosion in PDP that damaged itself.
That's quite true.
So that if you're talking of your Ogun State voter going one way, you're wrong. The game, as far as I knew, in 2011 that Buhari was playing, was great enough to go force a runoff. And then they always tell us that the population of Kano and Jigawa alone should be more than the whole of Southeast. And then when you have the rest of the Northwest, they even swallow the South. This is where they were wrong.
You see, why you attribute, I suspect, why you attribute sophistication to the average Lagos voter.
No, I asked, it was just a question I asked.
I think he agreed, Chief agreed, yes, that the Lagos voter is sophisticated and so on. And what is the basis of that assumption? Essentially because, I mean, if you say the average voter here in Lagos is sophisticated, it is because he has a proper understanding of the implication of being involved in the voting process. It is because he's much more educated. It is because he could be looking at performance as an indices for voting, not primordial ethnic sentiments or religious sentiments and so on. This could be it. But if that is the case, then you want to believe on the basis of assessing what is happening at the national level politically with regards to the performance of the PDP, then the PDP is going to lose Lagos State, hands down. As simple as that. There is no NEPA. I mean, the power infrastructure is contrary to all the promises
across the country making,
anyway. To the Nigerian people and so on. It has failed to take off, to materialize, and so many other promises that they have made to the Nigerian people, they have not been able to.
Anyway, I remember the president said we should wait and give him some time.
Well, that is what he keeps on saying. People are getting tired of that, and so there are those, in spite of even the sentiments that they show, there are those that are going to assess the politicians on the basis of their performance. It's not everybody that's going to go along the line of tribal sentiments, parochial sentiments, and
party lines.
Most importantly, you see, it depends on the ability of the politicians and the message that they give and the signals that they give before 2015, before that election. That would also determine what happens. Because if they give a completely different kind of signal,
and won't it also depend on the quality of candidates they're putting forward as well?
Quality of candidate, but again, we are talking sentiment. I was listening to a previous, I think interview when somebody, I think from the north, was saying, look, it's not the elites that are going to vote, it's the people, the ordinary people on the streets and so on. And so when it becomes an issue of, of passing a different kind of message to the people, for instance, the continuous threats by certain people in the South, about the possibility of war and chaos if Jonathan does not become president. And the reply by some people from the north that this is going to happen if Jonathan does not become president could tilt the whole equation of the voting process in all the regions of this country, because people are now going to look at it not on the basis of any indices of performance, but on the basis of parochial, tribal or religious sentiment. So you could now, and when that happens, some of these configurations that we have here now, for instance, what is going to happen in the northwest, in the northeast, and so on, will change automatically overnight, where you now have even PDP governors not being able to exercise any form of control over their own people on the streets. Because now they are going to see themselves purely as either northerners or purely as southerners. And when that happens, the equation, even with the so-called sophistication of the Lagos voter, would also change. And that will bode very negatively for the politics of Nigeria and for the future and stability of the Nigerian nation. This is what my fear is.
Right. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your thoughts. They're wonderful contributions. Now, Achiko Chuzi, thank you very much for coming on the program. And Chief Godwin Azurike, thank you very much for staying all through the program. And let me just say that Chief Godwin Azurike is also a lawyer, apart from being the president of Akai Kinga. Now, earlier on the program, just before we actually started, I spoke to Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who is a spokesperson of the Action Congress of Nigeria, about this whole merger by now by the ACN, CPC, DPP, ANPP, as well as a faction of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, as APGA. And now, here's what he said. Alhaji Lai Mohammed, spokesperson of the Action Congress of Nigeria, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now, educate us more about this merger. What it basically means is, as soon as the merger is consummated, as soon as INEC recognizes this merger and you have the APC recognized and registered by INEC, the ACN, for instance, ceases to exist. That name ACN ceases to exist. ANPP ceases to exist, and the Congress for Progressive Change, as well as APGA, ceases.
No. ACN, you are correct, ACN, CPC, and MPP will cease to exist, because those are the parties that went for a convention, and at their conventions, they got the mandate of their respective parties to merge and become APC.
In the case of APGA, there was no convention because of the division in the party.
Absolutely.
But you're dealing with a faction of APGA anyway.
We are dealing with the faction of APGA, yes.
And you've chosen to give them some positions in the interim arrangement.
Oh, yes, because they will also seek to be members of APGA as soon as, with this arrangement, yes.
Now,
and DPP is also, involved
as well.
As well.
The same way as APGA.
You see, because don't forget that the resolutions we pass at our various parties was that we are going to merge with the following parties and other political groups.
So in your estimation now, at what time do we expect to see the APC come on board with its name registered as a political party?
It can be later than 30. It can be later than 30 days from today.
So you expect that in 30 days from today, APC?
Absolutely.
Now, you must have heard, political analysts come up to say different things about this merger. And as you've said, this is the first time we'll be having a merger in this country. What we've had in the past would probably be a coalition and all of that. But you tried something the last time, before the last election. You were supposed to go into some kind of arrangement with the CPC. It didn't work out. Now you're trying it. You think this is for good, that this will eventually work out? I mean, there won't be any problem at all, because not quite long ago we heard you were having some kind of problems in appointing interim executive for the APC.
You see, like rightly said, this is the first time we're having a real merger. What we had before have been political alliances, cooperations, and the like. And you see, don't forget that we are talking about registered political parties, some as old as 14 years, some as old as 10 years, some as old as 6-7 years. And it's not easy, getting them together on the same platform. Definitely you have to manage people's egos, people's expectations, people's different cultures. But I think the good news is that nobody actually expected us to get this this far this soon. I remember when we started in February, most people said, "Oh, don't mind them. the whole thing will collapse on the issue of name. They will not even agree to find a common name. We did. Then he said, no, wait for them. When it comes to the issue of logo, they will fight themselves. We arrived at a common logo by consensus. Ditto for constitution. Ditto for our manifesto. And then at the point in time, the cynics also said, oh, they won't be able to have a convention because the certificate of one party is with one person. And so I think basically we are quite grateful and thankful that we're able to get thus far.
But let's face it, this is a merger of political parties of unequal strength, whether or not you like it. Your party would seem to be the strongest in the whole merger arrangement. The CPC hasn't got, the total number of states the ACN has. I mean, ditto for the ANPP. A merger of political parties of unequal strength, you don't think that is a recipe for some kind of crisis? Because even parties, some of these parties with, let me put it this way, parties that would, say parties with control of just 2 or 1 state might be making too much demand in the merger.
Well, I think it is credit of the promoters of this merger. I'm talking about the leaders of the parties of ACN, CPC, and ANPP in particular, that we went to the negotiating table without any conditionalities at all. If we had not done so, I'm sure we would not have achieved what we achieved so far. Yes, it is true that ACN has 6 states, to ABGA's only 1 state, and to CPC's only one state, and to NPP's only 3 states. That's correct. But we want to form a new party, and we don't want this division. We hope that by the time the license, we are given the registration, I will cease to think I'm from ACN. You will cease to think you are from CPC or NPP. And I must say that
but there's no question at all that your party would be requiring so much.
No, but it's look at
and it's only natural anyway.
No, I must say that even in the allocation of offices, ACN, CPC, NPP got the same number of offices. That shows the kind of magnanimity and the kind of sacrifices people are ready to make for this merger to work.
Are you very confident that the APC can actually take on the PDP in 2015 and defeat it?
Very confident. Honestly, you see, like I said, all politics is local. And with the merger today, we have covered sufficiently 4 major political zones in the country. We've covered the Southwest, we've covered the Northeast, we cover the Northwest. We are doing very well in North Central now, and even the South.
Now that is a question I'm going to ask you, because I mean, for you, I believe the calculation must be that if the CPC could take care of the entire North, you take care of the entire Southwest, and you don't expect, for instance, ABGA, the faction of ABGA that has joined you now, to be able to take care of the Southeast for you, and in the South, you've got virtually no presence there.
That's not correct.
Because the DPP, it's not a strong party in the South.
That's not correct. The DPP is very strong in Delta. The DPP today has a senator, and that's a whole senatorial district.
Would you?
The DPP has about 5 members in the House of Assembly in Delta.
Correct.
Now, it's part of South also.
And do not also forget that these 5 members you're talking about in the House of Assembly used to be in the PDP. The senator the DPP has today used to be in the PDP as well.
That's irrelevant because they voted for them their own personal capacity.
And you think the DPP would be able to swing the South for you in 2015?
No. I think Tony, you forget. Sorry, Deji, you're forgetting one thing. One, already we control Edo State. Edo State happens to be part of the South. With our incursion into Delta, we're getting a substantial part of South. And don't forget that in Delta, for the presidential election, we are going to have only 2-3 candidates. And if we do very well in the National Assembly elections, it will help us in the presidential election. But please, let's get it straight that if you control the Northwest, Northeast and the Southwest. In today's politics, it's difficult for anybody to beat
And
you.
that is assuming, anyway, that is assuming, because
Well,
as we speak, we cannot absolutely say for sure. Yes, it is true that the ACN is in control of the Southwest, but when it comes to election, there are so many intervening variables that would come to play. That's what we saw in 2011 when the ACN candidate did not do well. The presidential candidate did not do well in the Southwest. The PDP actually won the Southwest landslide.
You see, the factors that guided and determined the 2011 elections are completely different from those that will determine the 2015 election. Take the Southwest for instance. You see, don't forget that shortly before the presidential election, we reactivated the alliance talks with CPC. Well, in fact, until about a few days to the presidential election, we're not even sure that we are going to have a candidate or not. So,
in spite of that,
so by the time we came back and told the world that we were back, that New Rebad was back on our ballot, most Nigerians had reduced the contest to only 2 people.
you don't think most Nigerians, especially those living in Lagos, just in Lagos State, for instance, and other parts of the Southwest where the PDP won, I'm talking about the presidential election now, that they just considered, that they did not look at the political party, so to speak. They were looking at the candidates.
DEJI, listen, exactly what I'm saying. By the time we came back from the Butch talks, in the mind of the average Nigerian, there were only 2 candidates. General Buhari on the one side and
President Goodluck Jonathan.
Many things worked in favor of Goodluck Jonathan. One was religion. 2 was ethnicity. The average person in Lagos State who was a Christian voted for President Jonathan.
And you think these factors would not count in 2015?
Of course they would not. Things have changed.
What makes you think so?
Look, one is that people today have realized that poverty, hardship, misery does not make a distinction between Christians and Muslims. 2, they have hugely disappointed by President Jonathan's administration. I was reading a survey just yesterday where 85% of Nigerians said that their faith, their conditions are worse under the president than before. Now, Nigerians voted on sentiment, on emotion last election. 2 happened this time around. And so we are very confident that also given the performance of the ACN governors in their various states today, it will be difficult for anybody to upturn the victory of ACN.
Well, it's also difficult to say, because that is assuming that people would be voting along party lines and not looking at the candidates.
Look, either way.
It would also. Don't you also think it would as well depend on the candidate you're fielding and the quality of that candidate as well? Of course, it depends on the candidate
anybody is fielding. But I will tell you that if you look at representation of if you look at the dominance of the parties today, APC has firm control in 4 geopolitical zones, and that is something.
We're talking about, well, and then, you talked about the CPC, for instance. You're talking about the CPC. Of course, you've just said it has firm control in the Northwest, firm control in the Northeast as well.
No, I'm talking about...
No, I'm saying
yes,
CPC.
No, you see, between AMPP and CPC.
And CPC, yeah. And AMPP, because we should not also forget that CPC has control of just one state, which is in the North Central anyway.
You see,
in the case of AMPP...
you see, don't use the last governorship election or even presidential election or the election as a barometer for the popularity of any particular party. It will be wrong and misleading. And I'm sure this is what probably PDP is banking upon. Now, there are many things that happened in 2011 that we've realized now we won't allow that to happen again.
Like?
Look, for instance, the CPC was too young a party. They had little or no structure. In many areas, they could not even afford, party agents. And yet, with all that, they were able to poll 12 million votes. Now, with APC, that shortcoming will now be cured. The experience they lacked, the structure they lacked, will be there. Now, again, you are not going to have a more robust campaign. And that is why I'm happy that we are starting this merger and we are consummating it early enough. And the first test will be Anambra State, where we are moving into, shortly. Because we believe that election in Anambra will be either in November or December. Now, please don't use, you see, what happened in 2011 might be a good guide.
So we should use the Anambra election as a guide?
Oh, no, I'm just telling you that we're going into Anambra election as APC, for instance. And we're very hopeful. Very hopeful. Because don't forget that even as ACN, we came second, even by their own records, defeating PDP. And that was the time we had no governor in the entire Southeast. We had no senator in the entire Southeast. We had no member House of Representatives in the entire Southeast. Today, we have senators, we have House of Representatives, members, we have House of Senate members, we have a governor in the Southeast. So you can see what is going to happen in Anambra State.
Alhaji Lai Mohammed, spokesman of the Opposition Action Congress of Nigeria, speaking on developments surrounding the APC, that is the All Progressives Congress. Now let's turn our attention from politics to something that could have tremendous impact on Nigeria and its people. Recently, a top management staff of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, raised an alarm that the country's revenue may come under severe threat with the rapid expansion of shale oil exploration in the United States of America. A recent study conducted by Leonardo Magura, a former head of strategy of Italian oil giant Eni, revealed that a boom in shale will make the U.S. the largest oil producer in the world in 2017. PricewaterhouseCoopers also says in a report it released in February this year that shale oil, is fast gaining ground in the U.S. among consumers. The report specifically says, quote, it would revolutionize global energy markets, providing greater long-term security at lower cost for many countries. Now, the question is, how does all of this concern us? The answer is simple. Nigeria depends almost entirely on oil for its revenue. So if the price of oil goes down, especially below our budgetary benchmark, then we are in serious trouble. Besides, the United States is one of the largest consumers of Nigeria's oil. So if demand from the U.S. falls dramatically, then that also would spell trouble for us here in Nigeria. Also imagine what would happen if the U.S. decides to export its cheap shale oil to markets or territories that Nigeria supplies. The answer is pretty obvious. Now, to find out how serious this issue is, I asked two experts for their opinions. Listen to what they had to say.
The scenario is very frightening. It's very frightening because the economy is very, very vulnerable. It's like an economy that is standing on one leg. And in this situation, that one leg, which is oil and gas, is being threatened. And you can imagine if the one leg is cut off, you can imagine what will happen to the economy. It's a very frightening scenario, and I'm not sure whether we are actually ready for the challenges that will come out of it. Even as we speak, you will notice that even the oil prices are beginning to decline. The CBN has been battling seriously to stabilize the exchange rate. The exchange rate, the Naira now is under serious pressure. And you can imagine the kind of implication that will have for cost of goods and services in the economy, the threat to foreign reserves that we have, and even the threat to budget implementation. And if the situation continues that way, I'm not sure we'll be ready, we'll be able to actually survive the situation.
Yes, we are under threat, but the threat is not a problem. The threat is out of concern because we are not investing in our future. The Minister of Finance raised the alarm one time that we no longer have monopoly of the cash crop that seemed to be sacrosanct to Nigeria or some privileged clubs. Today you have oil in Gambia, for example. Lagos State has discovered oil. So that will add more to our strategic reserve and eventually lead to a glut. Kenya has discovered oil. The Lake Victoria axis, there is oil. There will be oil in Maiduguri and those Trans-Sahel region because they are the same belt with Libya. So there will be oil in those axes. Saudi Arabia will never stop pumping, and they will keep pumping as long as America says keep pumping to reduce the price. America has always produced more oil than Nigeria. The new discovering or the new discoveries will only make her to be more self-sufficient than ever. And don't forget, we still import refined petroleum products. So what will happen is that the demand for our oil will be less, the prices will fall, our exclusive cash crop, because oil still forms over 90% of our national income, will be reduced. Then we will have a problem. We may not be able or ever be able to meet our budget deficit. And we are not growing other sectors. For example, our electricity is at 1,500 megahertz. So the vision of Nigeria being at par with some developed countries in 2020, I think it's a mirage. And if we are not producing, and we are not exporting, and we are still exporting products at its crude stage, I don't see us getting anywhere.
But the question is, what should Nigeria be doing right now to stave off this coming catastrophe? Listen again to what the experts had to say.
We may not be able to meet our immediate revenue target.
No need now.
But don't forget, Nigeria has people. This is a country that there was once a Chinua Achebe. This is a country that had Njokiobu. This is a country that has Wole Soyinka. This is a country that has Zik and Awo and Sadana Sokoto. We will then reinvent ourselves. This is a country that has gold, aquamarine, tantalite, magnesium, uranium, tin, columbite. This is a country that used to export palm oil, palm kernel. Don't forget that we gave Malaysia the seedlings that made them popular today. And we are importing palm oil today from Malaysia. We will reinvent ourselves. We will now then sit backwards and go back to the drawing board, unfortunately, and said, hey, gentlemen, where do we go wrong? Everybody has oil now. Nobody is buying oil. Where do we have a competitive advantage? What can we do to save Nigeria? Maybe for the first time, instead of me, we'll be thinking of us. I think maybe we'll be more sensible. Because everybody that has a company today is in oil services. Whether you are delivering diesel from point A to point B, you are in oil services. If you are selling motor oil, you are in oil services. If you are selling only diesel, you are in oil services. Maybe we have to grow to a point where this thing is found in everybody's backyard, so it is no longer relevant. Then we can go back to the drawing board.
What we should be doing, actually, what we should have done, actually, is even more important. But there is very little, as to what we can do about the past. What we should be doing now is to just make sure that we stabilize the oil and gas sector, We encourage the investors that are willing to invest. We encourage the investors that are still on grant by ensuring that there is security in the Niger Delta, by ensuring that protection of lives and property is assured, by also ensuring that there is clarity and clarity of policy. The petroleum industry bill, we need to actually fast track it so that at least those who are investing in the oil and gas sector, we have a very clear horizon, policy-wise, to be able to plan and to be able to invest. But clearly, the shock will be very, very profound on the economy, and we cannot run away from it. This is the time actually to be diversifying the economy, to rely less on oil, and to spend less on consumption. Because the tragedy of the Nigerian economy is that all the money we have made from oil, we have been spending on consumption. Spending to fund some very bogus political structures, spending to fund corruption, you know? So we have really nothing to show in terms of concrete investment. Unlike what you have in other oil-producing countries like the Middle East, for instance. Whatever they had from the oil sector, they actually invested. We don't have infrastructure, we don't have power. Even in the oil sector, even the infrastructure to actually develop the oil sector, like refineries, like the petrochemicals, we don't have them. So it's really a very big tragedy. And unless our political leaders realize this, and unfortunately they don't realize this, I think the future is likely to be very challenging.
Well, let's just hope those in authority are doing something about this and acting fast, because time, unfortunately, is not in our hands. That's it on DEJI360. We thank you very much for watching. I am DEJI360. I'll see you next time.